Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-Bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite,
and we are a weekly video game podcast centered around the ideas of culture, art, politics, science, whatever else you guys care about, and smashing those together with video games.
Yeah, and today we are drinking Samuel Adams Oktoberfest again.
Once again.
So we talked about it last week, so just refer to last week's episode. Again, we are poor and can't always afford to get brand new beer every episode, but that's okay. Today, our episode is another very special episode. I like to think all of these kinds of episodes are special. And we're going to be talking about tabletop RPGs, but it's not quite a deep dive. Instead, we're going to be interviewing our very own dungeon master of our Pathfinder game that we talked about a couple episodes ago, and he will be our quintessential tabletop RPG expert. So we'd like to introduce you to our dungeon master, Nick Taylor.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, glad to be here. I'm also drinking cheap beer, but
yeah,
I'm in Prague in the Czech Republic, where beer is actually cheaper than water. So,
that's crazy. Yeah. That's
insane.
Awesome. Man, we should go to Prague.
Yeah.
Nick can show us around.
What are the examples there? Like, what does water cost per bottle, and what does a bottle of beer cost?
So basically, especially at a restaurant, you're going to pay about 30 crowns, which is like $1.50, for a third of a liter of water or a half a liter of beer.
Wow. Nick, do you go by any... It can either be like a video game gamer tag, or it can be, you could go by like your your Pathfinder character name, like your main Pathfinder character name. We can call you that.
I've had too many characters to have a main character name, but a lot of people call me Peach.
Peach.
That is a nickname. Yeah.
Excellent.
Does it have anything to do with Princess Peach from Mario?
It doesn't. I lived in Georgia for a brief time as a kid, and then I got the name Peach when I moved away.
Awesome. Oh. We'll either call you Nick or we'll call you Peach. So
I like Peach.
I know. Peach, Penguin, and Termite.
Hey, it's a little almost alliteration.
I know, right? Well, Peach and Penguin for sure.
Yeah.
PPT. Great. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you on the show. And we'll talk more about who you are when we get to that portion of it. But first, we wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world and what's going on in our lives. So the thing I wanted to bring up that's been interesting to me is in video game news I wanted to briefly mention it, but there's been a controversy regarding the Witcher games. CD Projekt Red, who made the Witcher series, is being sued by the author of the Witcher books. So when they created the Witcher, they bought the rights from the novels. So they adapted the Witcher into a video game series from these book series. Yeah, these book series.
Do we know his name?
We do. It's Andrzej Sapkowski or something like that. I don't know. He's Polish, I think.
Yes. And
anyways, he wrote the books, and then CD Projekt Red came to him and said, "Hey, we want to make a video games based on your books." And he said, "F off. Video games will never be successful." And so instead of the percentage of profits they offered him, he instead wanted a one-time fee of like $9,000 for the rights.
Super cheap compared to what they actually made.
Right, exactly. The franchise exploded, especially with The Witcher 3, became one of the best-selling games probably over the last several years. And now the author is now suing them for $16 million in damages because he claims that he's invoking some obscure Polish law that says if you make more than X amount of profit off of a thing, then I
didn't know that layer of complexity.
Right, there is some complexity. So CD Projekt Red's official response is, we really want to keep the relationship with him open because they want to continue making Witcher games, I imagine. But so they're trying to come to a settlement, but they also said that's way too much money. They cannot give him $16 million or whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating it almost warrants an entire discussion in and of itself, but it's just kind of crazy. So I don't know, Nick, do you have any thoughts? I don't know if you've heard about it or been reading anything about it.
No, I don't. I think that is interesting. Living here in the Czech Republic, I'm like an hour from Poland. And,
oh, yeah?
I am kind of finding out all kinds of stuff about how the laws are super different. Like, I wonder really what that's like, the law issue.
Right. The basis upon which, and I believe CD Projekt Red is a Polish company too, so it's like that's all being dealt. I mean, essentially, it's not like he's trying to invoke Polish law on like an American company. They're both.
Yeah, they're all out there.
They're all they're both in the same country, so they are subject to the same laws, I imagine.
Yeah,
which is interesting. So Penguin and Termite, we'll discuss it more probably in a future episode because there were some other cool developments that came as a result of that whole controversy.
Yeah.
that we wanted to talk about further. But I
I'd
thought
love
it was
to,
worth mentioning.
dig
'cause
into
it's-
some American like rights for IP, copyright laws, or ownership laws, or licensing laws,
Right,
and, like,
because-
compare them to Polish ones and try and figure out
I
what
think he
exactly
also
is going
said.
on.
Yeah, I think he also said that like, oh, I only gave them rights for the first game.
Yeah.
and then they made 2 games,
You're like,
the third of which was the one that was really popular.
Yeah.
and so that's why I think he's partially invoking. I do think it's a jerk move. I think at the end of the day,
He's like, hey, you guys made a lot of more money than I thought you were going to make.
exactly,
And I want my
and
share.
now I want my share. When
Yeah.
we gave you the opportunity, you could have had this from the beginning, and now you're being a jerk about it. You were being a jerk about it before, and now you're being a jerk about it.
Yep.
In hindsight.
Yeah.
So I just think it's kind of shady and disappointing, especially for someone who actually like created something that a lot
Awesome.
of people love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Crazy.
Have you ever played The Witcher games, Nick?
I haven't. Those have been on my list to play for
Okay.
a while.
Just skip the first 2. Just go ahead and go right into The Witcher 3. You don't really need to know
Okay.
what's going on.
yeah, I've never played the first 2.
Right. I think I played like 5 minutes of the second one and it just wasn't. It was kind of
Yeah.
So
They didn't age well.
no, they did not age well. That's for sure. Well, cool. Is there anything else going on? Anything you guys wanted to?
Someone picked up Telltale Games
Did they?
property. They picked up The Walking Dead, and they're going to finish it for them.
Oh, that's cool.
How much of a slap in the face is that, though, to the creators?
That is
like if
pretty
you
bad.
sunk your heart and soul into something, and then your company goes bankrupt, and you're told to walk away from it, and then someone else gets paid to finish your work, and the company didn't do their due diligence to pay you to finish your own work?
Yeah.
That's messed up. So
Yeah,
it's
it is
kind
messed
of
up.
it's like bittersweet because it's like,
Yeah.
oh great, someone came alongside and they found some
Yeah, when
buyer.
you said picked them up, I thought you meant like they picked up their.
Oh no, the whole company's still
Right, okay,
yeah, they're gone. Yeah. Just a different company's going to finish their game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and Toys R Us is coming back. Did you hear about that?
What?
Yeah,
That's
someone
crazy.
someone bought the rights to Jeffrey, the mascot,
Uh-huh.
and with that, now they have the rights to start their own like chain of Toys R Us stores again. So
Wow.
apparently that's happening.
Gosh, is all this kind of like
Yeah.
back and forth. Are companies
Mhm.
going under, or are they coming back? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
stop messing with my emotions like that, America.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world we live in.
Yeah, cool. All right, and then we can probably go ahead and move on to our first segment of the podcast, which is
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. That's going to be awesome
Yes.
when we finalize that.
I know,
Because
yeah.
we're all like timing and
It was
delaying.
all-
Yeah. That's great.
It'll sound amazing.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So, favorite things is the first segment of our podcast where we kind of just catch y'all up on what we're digging this week and what thing made us most excited of all the things this week. So, Nick, did you want to start us off? Our guest, did you have a favorite thing this week?
I can say my favorite thing is Spider-Man.
Yes.
And I do not have a PlayStation 4, so I have not played the new game at all. But I've been on Twitch watching whatever random people I can find playing the game because I'm just obsessed with Spider-Man. And it's been a blast watching all these people and telling them what suit to wear, and then they'll change because I'm like the only person watching their Twitch.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
I was actually playing that right before Penguin got here
Nice.
today. Yep.
I platinumed it. I've already passed it off to Ryan.
I'm working on it. You did
Mhm.
pass it on today. I saw
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it is one of the easiest games to platinum, and
Yeah.
I was reading something on Reddit that was saying I think it's quickly becoming one of the highest platinumed
it. Yeah, it is.
games of all of the trophies on
Yeah,
PlayStation.
of all the games,
Yeah,
yeah.
of all the games. Yeah, exactly, which is pretty crazy.
Mhm.
So
Especially when you can spend $1 and get a tapping game and get a platinum in 20 minutes.
right. Nick,
You can do
you
that.
said you don't have a PlayStation 4. Are you interested in getting one as a result of Spider-Man, or are you still kind of?
Absolutely, I'm interested, but budget-wise, it's going to be a little while before I can get one. I'm mostly sticking to old school games that I can play here on my GameCube.
Respectable.
Yes.
Yeah, very respectable
Yeah.
there. Hmm. Cool. My favorite thing is I was at a bachelor party this weekend, and for a friend of mine who's getting married, so shout out to Mitch Hamner, who I don't know if he listens, but if he does,
Congratulations.
you're getting married. Anyway, so we were celebrating with him this weekend, and we went to Devil's Backbone Brewery in Crozet, outside of Crozet, Virginia. It's near a skiing resort called Wintergreen, which is where we were staying. And it's an incredible brewery. Like Devil's Backbone ships, distributes nationwide, I
Mhm.
believe. So any of our listeners,
They're everywhere around here. They're like
Yeah.
the gateway craft beer in our area.
Yeah, and it's and they were bought by Anheuser-Busch, I think, too. So but they're whatever your feeling is, I was never a huge fan of their beer, period.
Yeah.
But their brewery is awesome. It's
I
this
need to go.
huge campus, basically. Like they have multiple buildings.
Mhm.
So they have a restaurant. They have a bar that's it's like their distillery building, so you can see all the stuff. But also
The
being
giant
like
tanks and all that,
but then
yeah.
they have like a fireplace and like leather sofas and couches and stuff where you just sort of sit and chill. And there's a giant stuffed buffalo head
Nice.
like hanging over the fireplace. And then there's a bar in there. Then there's an outdoor bar in a huge field and a stage where they can have like live performances. But the wide open field, you can just bring there are people with like cornhole sets and Can Jam. We brought Can Jam and played that.
Nice.
Like just in the field while waiting for a table, and getting beers at the outdoor bar, and they have like fire pits and so it's just like you could go there and then spend the entire day there and have a different experience in different parts of the
Did
campus.
you take a tour or anything?
No.
Okay.
We just went for we got to put our names in, hour and a half, wait for a table.
Dang.
Well, there was also 12 of us too.
Yeah.
So, hour and a half wait for a table, and then we kind of just played Can Jam until we got seated.
Yeah.
And hung out and
Nice.
drank. So it was just crazy. It was a great experience. One of the better I mean, most breweries are like tiny. So it's just like, it's a bar, some tables, cool ambience, but like this was like an entire day's worth of experience. So that's what you expect from a nationwide
Did they
craft
have
brewery,
any
but-
beers on
Yeah.
tap that you haven't had before that made your opinion of their beer better?
Yes, they had a ancient grain wheat beer called Sludge River. So it was made with like ancient grains,
Yeah.
and it was good. It had like a really interesting kind of like, it still tasted like a pretty straightforward like lager,
Yeah.
but it had a very kind of interesting aftertaste that I liked. So it was good. And I had their Oktoberfest, which
Was that
was
good
also
too?
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was good too.
Sweet.
So all very kind of weak. Like the strongest beer they had was like 7%.
hmm
So they're not a very like, and I'd be interested to know if they do like stouts and stuff in the winter, but
I don't know what they have
Yeah.
for their limited releases, but
Mhm.
was it in the mountains?
yeah.
So
So
you
it's
have,
like right.
mountainous view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really cool.
That's
Cool. All right, Termite, what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is a recent discovery of my love for steak. Once again, I haven't had steak in so long. Just not because I'm like anti-steak or anything. I just haven't had it. Like it just hasn't been a thing. And Alex and I, my wife, went to Firebirds over the weekend.
Okay.
And a good steak doesn't need sauce. And it was a
Right.
darn good steak.
Correct.
It was so good. Juicy, tender. I always get them rare.
Mm-hmm.
And restaurants that do it right, it's good.
Yeah.
And they do it right. So I was
Good.
just really, really impressed with steak.
Mm.
And I had
Nice.
this experience. My taste of wines is finally kind of coming alive a
Yeah.
little bit. I'm like learning more about wine. We went to
Mhm.
New York and we went to a nicer restaurant and we had a sommelier come to the table and like go through different types of wine and figure it all out. And there was a time in my life where I'd just been like, nah, who cares? Just give me something. And I don't care. But this time I actually went through the wines at Firebirds and
Yeah.
they presented us some and I didn't like them.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't like this. And I'm not that kind of guy. I'm like, crap. Now I'm becoming a wine snob. I'm like, man. So I sent like 3 wines back that I didn't like. And this guy, he was really cool. The waiter was awesome. I tipped him well for it. He came back out with
Yeah.
like 4 samples all at once. And he's like,
Mhm.
okay, blind tasting. You're just going to taste each one and give me a rating, like A, B, C, or D. And, you know, A if you really like it, D if you don't.
Okay.
And instead of, I don't know, instead of a number.
I would
it
think
was-
like wine A, B, C, and D, and then give me a 5-star like
Yeah,
1
no,
through
it was
5. Yeah.
Like,
okay.
take this glass, rate it, take this glass, rate it. And so I came up with a Malbec, which I love Malbecs. They're from Argentina.
Mhm.
So, they're like, oh, yeah. So anyway, it was really fun. Good experience at Firebird. So I don't know if my favorite thing is the restaurant or the steak, but I liked them both.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I bet you have had some crazy awesome wines over there.
Mostly beer here, but I did try this really local wine that was terrible the other day.
Mhm.
What did that
They've
taste
got-
like?
They've got this thing called burchak, which everyone drinks in the fall, and they say you have to drink as many liters as you have blood.
Oh,
Oh,
my.
wow.
Yeah, and it tastes like grape juice. It's like super sweet and disgusting, and that's my local experience with wine.
Wow. Do you ever get to like pop over to France and
Not yet. We're
Not yet,
planning
okay.
to go to Italy in the spring. Is our next big trip.
And what is a big, how long a drive is that? If you can you drive?
we'll
I don't know geography.
Yes, you can.
you absolutely can drive. We'll probably take a train though because we don't have a car here.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm so
we'll take-
jealous.
Actually, that's my favorite thing. Public transportation in Prague.
Yeah. Oh, I hate owning a car. Everything to do with owning a car is horrible, except for actually driving it, which isn't that bad.
Yeah,
but-
would you say that like going from Prague to Italy would be roughly the same as going from like, I don't know, New York to Florida?
Probably shorter.
Shorter,
well,
okay.
Italy's huge, depending on where in Italy.
That's why I was kind of like,
Yeah.
some
Florida's
parts of
a good
Italy.
comparison, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
New York to Jacksonville, or versus New York to Miami would be different. Yeah.
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 Something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool. So, yeah, because Europe as an entire continent is roughly the size, a little bit bigger than when you include Russia, it's a little bit bigger than the USA.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like most of the states or countries are like it's a matter of like states. Like France, yeah. Mm-hmm. So from where he is and to France isn't too far, depending on where he goes in France. So,
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I just got to go all the way across Germany,
Yeah, exactly.
which is like Texas.
yeah.
So.
Dang. Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, that's favorite things. Let's go ahead. Oh my gosh. Do you have a DLC?
We don't have. Do we want to do another blank blank?
Yeah, let's do a blank blank.
We're gonna do a blank
It's
blank?
probably easier. Yeah.
Because we didn't prepare a DLC.
Yeah, that's fine. Nick, you're gonna help us on blank blank.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
So our DLC today. So wait, hold on. We gotta introduce DLC.
Downloadable content.
Yeah, DLC is our second segment that we always do after favorite things, and it's stands for downloadable content, and we come up with some kind of like sub mini discussions, something fun that may or may not relate to our main topic, and is just something that we kind of come up off the like. It's a conversation that you'd be like, hey, what if this happened? Or what would you do in this situation? That's kind of the spirit behind DLC. So when he said blank blank, it's kind of we're kind of trying to bring it back because that was like the origins of DLC
It
was who would win in a blank? Who would win in a fishing contest? Who would win in a, I don't know, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And one of us comes up with the who, and the other person comes up with the what.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of try to bring that back, and we'll do it for the third time in a row, and then
Yes.
maybe give you guys a break and do something else for DLC for the next one.
Yeah.
So since we have Nick here, why don't you pick, I'm gonna harp on your tabletop characters.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to pull from that pool of resources. So why don't you pick two of your tabletop characters that you've played as? So kind of start thinking about them now. If they don't have like very specific names, or if you don't remember the names, then you can just kind of make up names for them. But you could also refer to them as like, oh, there was my druid and my archer or whatever. And then just kind of think about like, try to do your best to remember like what their personality. We'll give you a chance to kind of tell us about them. So think about your two characters, and then we'll come up with a contest, what we want those two characters to compete in. And then and then we'll discuss who we think would win based on your description of your characters and that contest.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Sound like a plan? So what do we want? What do we want as characters to compete in? So be thinking about your characters.
A game of ladder ball.
A game of what?
Ladder ball.
Ladder ball?
Yeah.
I don't know what ladder ball. Do you know
Isn't
what ladder
that
ball is?
Isn't that the thing you brought to the beach?
Oh, ladder golf.
Ladder golf.
Ladder
My bad.
Golf.
Yeah, that.
Okay. All right. We could do that. We could do who would win.
Oh, that's a
in-
nice way to say you don't like my idea.
No. I'm trying to come up with. I'm giving him time to think and come up with his characters while we discuss possibilities. How about who would win in a hot dog eating contest?
I like that better.
You like that better?
I do.
Hot
I
dog
love
eating
hot
contest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frankfurters.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll set the what kind of hot dogs specifically?
Like the kosher all beef ones.
Kosher all beef hot dogs.
And the bougie ones, like the good ones with sauerkraut on them, and
Okay.
like the nice ones.
Yeah,
not-
these details are important because based on what character you choose, things
Right.
might be interesting. Like
so these
Yeah.
are like the big. I guess we call them footlongs here, but like an actual Frankfurter from
Oh, nice.
like
Yeah.
Germany.
Are we talking
or like
like-
from a
Okay.
Jewish deli?
Are we talking like what kind of buns? Like just your straight up white
It'd
bread
be like
buns?
a hoagie bun.
Like okay,
Or like-
hoagie bun.
Yeah,
like thick.
that's the real like
okay. All right.
legit hot dog.
Any condiments, or do they have the option of putting
Sauerkraut.
condiments on? Just sauerkraut,
Yep.
and all of them have sauerkraut. They
They
can't
do.
have no sauerkraut.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Hot dog
Okay.
eating contest. They have
Yes.
how much time?
5
minutes. As many hot dogs as in 5 minutes.
What is a normal one? Like
I don't know.
what's the big one? Like the crazy national one that the guy dips it.
Nathan's, I think it's like 10 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, let's do
10
that.
minutes. 10 minutes. Okay.
Regulation.
All right.
10-minute
So regulation. 10 minutes. Hot dog eating contest. Who are your
Yeah.
two characters? Describe
Okay.
them for us.
So I'm going to describe my characters, and then you're going to decide who wins. Is that how this goes?
We will. The three
Well,
of
all
us
of
will
us will.
decide
Yeah.
who wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. My two favorite characters I've ever played are the first one is a character I play in a play-by-post online game. His name is Hobie Browncloak, and he is an arcane archer. He is
Okay.
a halfling in a party full of halflings.
Ooh, okay.
All right.
And he is basically like the most. It's a family-friendly podcast, so I can't say bad A.
You can.
Bad
That's
A.
fine. Badass is fine. You can say that.
Okay.
It's kind
He's
of
the most-
acceptable colloquialisms. Yeah.
All right, so he's the most badass archer you've ever seen. He's an arcane archer, which means that he mixes some sort of magical wizarding stuff into his archer. He can shoot arrows imbued with spells.
Okay.
That's Hobie. And then Remy is another one of my favorite characters. He's also a halfling, and he is kind of your prototypical halfling thief character. He is all about stealing whatever he can steal. I maxed out his sleight of hand stats so that he's just insanely able to steal from any NPC that he interacts with, or even some of the other PCs. But he doesn't care about anything except taking whatever he can take and putting it in his handy haversack.
Nice.
All right.
All right. So we have Hobie and Remy.
Hobie.
Hobie and
Hobie
Remy,
and Remy.
right?
Hobie and Remy. Yep.
Hobie and Remy.
Nice.
Okay. So my instincts say Remy to start with, only because I'm thinking like, well, they're both halflings.
Mhm.
So halflings are known for when you think halfling, you think hobbit. At least I do.
I do. Yeah.
And I think that like, yeah, they both can probably eat. So it's probably
Yeah.
a close competition.
Eat
But
a lot.
Remy, you say that he's skilled at like taking things and like
Very quickly.
putting them wherever he can, quote unquote. I imagine he's worked on like expanding his stomach over the years so he can like swallow things and puke them up later.
Maybe.
Like, which would be an incredible skill to
Yeah.
have in a hot dog eating contest.
It would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Hobie, right?
Yeah.
But
Hobie
Hobie
was
is mage.
yeah.
I mean, he infuses his arrows with magic. But maybe there's a magic that can take a whole plate of hot dogs and liquefy them. And he just chugs it. And then he can eat way more and way faster because there's less I wouldn't say less volume. Conservation of mass
Mhm.
would say it's the same volume, but it's
Right.
liquid, so you can just drink it
You can drink it.
yeah.
Yeah. as opposed to chewing and eating all that.
I also like the sort of common use of like what wizards of any variety are they're usually kind of like intellectuals, like they
Mhm.
understand, like they're usually scholarly, book learned.
Yes.
And I don't know if Hobie's like that in your campaign or not.
Yeah, he's pretty smart. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's kind of like,
Mhm.
so he just, I'm sure he would like, I'm going to figure out a spell that would be most appropriate to
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
of this.
Or he could shrink the hot dogs
Yeah,
and
possibly.
then actually
That is
reduce the
true.
volume.
Yeah.
Cast, shrink, item. Absolutely. That's a
Oh.
good call.
Oh, there you go.
All
All right,
Yep,
what are your
shrink item.
thoughts, Nick, between the two of them?
I would put my money on Remy.
What?
But not actually in eating the hot dogs. Like, I think that he would be sneaking them into his backpack without anybody noticing. He would be gaming the system. I'm pretty sure
He's
Remy
like,
could take home.
I'm going to save these for a later campaign so that I have some
Yeah.
easy health recovery items here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I was going to say he's not only eating his own, but then he's stealing the small shrunk hot dogs from Hobie at the same time. And then he like later, I don't know, but you wouldn't be able to rate that because in a hot dog eating contest, you don't eat your friend's hot dogs. That doesn't count.
Yeah,
That's silly.
well,
but he
Yeah,
could still
that
do
would
it.
actually be
true.
helping.
That's true.
That would actually be helping.
Yeah, helping him, yeah.
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 Okay. So Nick is saying that Remy would win through cheating, essentially,
Mhm.
but would win
Yes.
nonetheless because he wouldn't get caught. That's the important
Right.
thing. It's only cheating if you get caught.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
I-
you'd
I
say
can get
Remy
behind
would
that.
win kind
I'd
of
say
the same
Remy
way.
would win more or less the same way,
Yeah.
but he has skills that he would be putting. He has more practical skills that he'd be putting to use in
Mhm.
order to. Whereas, like, Hobie would be probably thinking through it logically, the best way to actually win honorably, even with his considerable power. Whereas Remy would be thinking about the best way to win, period,
Mhm.
which is by cheating.
So I'd still put my money on Hobie.
Really good?
I
Okay.
would.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So two
All
for Remy, 2 for Hobie. Listeners,
What,
tell us what
two
you
for
think.
Hobie? I'm 2?
Sorry,
All right,
two-
I'll take 2 votes. Sweet.
2
it's a tie,
for
guys.
Remy, 1 for Hobie.
3 guys somehow voted a tie. I don't know how that worked.
Yeah, you're worth 2 people. You got 6 arms, so it's cool. Listeners, let us know what you think, whether or not of the 2 halflings that have been described for you, who would win in a hot dog eating contest. And next week, we'll come up with a different kind of DLC for y'all to listen to. But hopefully you enjoyed this. All right. Woo, DLC's over. Great. All right. So now we can start the meat of our conversation, which, again, we mentioned on the top. We are going to be talking about tabletop RPGs.
Mhm.
And we're going to be having our quote-unquote expert here to talk about them with us. So, yeah, Nick, why don't you just start off by telling us about yourself, telling us who you are, what you do, and our favorite question for all of our interviewees, which is, what's your favorite video game?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me start off by saying that expert is a very loosely used term here. I would think that I'm kind of an expert on the Pathfinder system, but I will speak for all tabletop RPGs today. My name is Nick. I am an ESL teacher, English as a Second Language. I'm currently living in Prague, where I'm teaching here in the Czech Republic in businesses all around the city. As far as my favorite video game, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yeah, all right.
Interesting. That's one we haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
Good.
That's awesome.
Nothing's ever passed it in my heart.
You mentioned that you were you mentioned that you were playing like old video games. Are you oh my gosh,
all right. Wow, you have
Of course
everything
he
ready, man.
He does. He always does. He's like, this game you mentioned, I happen to have it. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Have you been
It's
playing much Sonic the Hedgehog 2, or when was the last time you played it?
I haven't played it in years, to be
Okay.
honest. My Sega is at my mom's house in the basement somewhere. The only game system I have here is my GameCube, which I've been playing a lot lately.
Nice.
Yes.
Would you say that because your favorite game is Sonic, would you say that, we'd actually just recently talked about like console generations, and we talked a little bit about the console wars, and in the 90s, the big one was between Nintendo and Sega. Would you say that you're more of a Nintendo or Sega guy then?
I was definitely a Sega kid during that time.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
I was really, really heartbroken when the Dreamcast kind of died and Sega ended as a console creator. But
Yeah.
I bought a GameCube and I was happy.
Nice.
Good
Cool.
choice.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
then, with the wake of Sega having collapsed, would you what would you say is your current favorite console developer? I guess
Nintendo.
Nintendo. Okay.
I've got a lot more heart for Nintendo than the other guys.
Great.
Yes.
As
Good
we
choice.
always- You're
Yeah.
in good company then, because we're all Nintendo
We're a bunch of
fanboys
Nintendo
here.
fanboys. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So then let's talk a little bit more specifically about tabletops.
Yeah.
We tongue in cheek call you an expert, and that's only because you know enough to dungeon master, which compared to me, like it means that you are an expert, because I think that, and it's an interesting thing to discuss, but we'll get closer we'll talk more about dungeon mastering when we get to that question, because we have a lot of questions about being a DM. But yeah, I do think it's I would imagine it's not much of a stretch. Like I think a lot of even regular players would say, yeah, the person who DMs, they
know.
If they're willing to DM, then they earn it. Yeah. But cool. So let's sort of talk about your experience with tabletops. How long have you been playing tabletop RPGs, and what was your first experience, and what's your favorite tabletop RPG?
Yeah, I've actually only been playing for 2 or 3 years now.
Okay.
My first experience was I moved to South Dakota, where there is not much going on. And my first week there, I was there before my wife because I had to be there early for a job. So I just went to a local game store to kill some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I met these dudes who, shout out to Mike Wellman. He's my very first GM ever.
Sweet.
I'll make sure he listens to this.
All right.
He welcomed me in along with some other guys and had me play in a scenario with them. And like the very first moment of the game, one of the other PCs got critical hit by a knight with a lance and was killed.
Oh no.
I was hooked. Like, it wasn't my character, it was some other guy's character, and I was just hooked from the get-go. Like, it was awesome. So, and then that's Pathfinder game system, which is hands down my favorite. It's the one I'm most experienced with.
Awesome. And
So.
have you played any of the other have you had much experience with any other tabletop RPGs, whether it be D&D or?
I've played D&D 5e some, and I'm in a campaign here of Mutants and Masterminds.
Okay.
Which is kind of a superhero-based RPG.
Nice. Yeah.
I think I've heard of that. It sounds familiar.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's all kinds of, what's great is like they even have tabletop RPGs for like most. You could probably find like a Marvel
Yeah.
TTRPG, or you could find, I know there's a Firefly one out there, which is crazy.
Oh wow.
So like they've kind of blown up and just kind of like, yep, any world that you can dream of, like they probably have a tabletop for it. My favorite one that I've heard of is there's a card game I have called Drunk Quest, which is Drunk Quest is like, it's like Munchkin, so it's not a tabletop at all. It's a card game. And I don't think it's the same creators, but I think because of my interest in Drunk Quest, like I'll search it on Amazon every once in a while, and I have it on my wish list, like the expansion. Every once in a while, like Amazon or Facebook or something will throw a advertisement my way that's for a tabletop drinking game.
Oh nice.
I forget what it's called,
nice.
but Yeah, I imagine it's much the same. Like they're gonna do tabletop RPG. So now that I actually have experience with tabletop RPGs, I might go looking for it and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
Because it would be fun to play. But
So
I
since
think
you
I saw
mentioned,
that one on Kickstarter.
yes, yeah, it was
Actually,
on Kickstarter. Yeah. So
no idea what it's called.
I don't off the top of my head.
I don't remember either.
All right.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned that Munchkin or Drunk Quest is not a tabletop RPG, what is a tabletop RPG? Let's define that.
Yeah. So how would you, Nick, define tabletop RPGs as our expert?
Yeah, so a tabletop RPG, if I was like describing it to someone, what I would call it is a cooperative storytelling experience. Is the first thing I would call it. It's basically a game where one GM and 3 to 6 players come around, and the GM leads them. I'm sorry, I say GM because that's the Pathfinder term for
Right.
Game Master.
Yeah.
Instead of DM, Dungeon Master. They're interchangeable.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
But
Good
so the
clarification.
GM leads the players in a story that he has sort of created an outline of, and then they, with their own creative minds and their dice, they fill out the rest of the story by going in certain directions or whatever. But basically, it's a game where you're working together to accomplish whatever tasks your dungeon master or game master has presented in front of you.
Right. So like a comparison to video games, would it be fair to say in a way, the DM is basically like the operating system of the game. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
it is the DM sort of serves as the interface by which the players interact with the world that you create, and then the players are the players. Like they are in control of some elements, but you as the DM or GM are in control of kind of the cause and effect. Like they're kind of in charge of the cause in a lot of ways, and you're kind of in charge of the effect, and then some of the causes as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense.
Or I would even say that the DM and the players are both the developers of the game. So like
Interesting,
versus
yeah.
a video game where you're just playing something that's developed for you, the players are actually developing the story along with the creator.
Yeah, because the bounds of what you can do are like not there with tabletop RPGs versus a video game. Like you can only do what the video game is programmed to allow you to do. So there's
Right.
restrictions placed on you. Whereas when you're making your own kind of story with a tabletop RPG, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can go wherever you want. To some extent.
Exactly.
And it really reminds me of like I'm thinking about it now in those terms, and it really reminds me of like the games I would play as a kid, and by that I mean like not the video games I would play, not the card games. I mean literally like when I was playing with my friends, we would create entire like we're the 5 ninjas, and I have the power of lightning, and you have the power, and we'd make up villains and monsters, and it was incredibly rudimentary storytelling basically, but like. It was this very like childlike, and like Dungeons and Dragons takes that and just puts some rules, like establishes, like says, okay, well we're gonna use that sort of element of play, like and kind of imaginative play, but then like put some rules in place so that
some
like
stat sheets,
yeah,
and character
exactly.
development,
Make it kind of nerdy,
Exactly.
yeah, but that's cool. So other than kind of the things we talked about, what other things about tabletop RPGs would you say kind of make them awesome, like make them worth investing time in as just as a gamer, I guess, yeah.
The big one as a gamer is what you guys just talked about. That you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it's completely open world. But the thing that I think is really cool about it compared to other board games or other video games is that you are working together.
Yes.
You have to be in your party, and it is innately cooperative. You're trying to accomplish some goal as a group, and you just have to work together. If you don't work together, then it goes crazy.
Cool.
So what made you want to learn how to be a GM?
Well, I started with this group of guys in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where the way we played was each week, we played every Friday, and each week a different person would GM for the night.
Okay.
And so for, a long time, for a bunch of months, I was just coming and playing, letting the more experienced guys GM, but it's work to prepare to be the GM. So eventually it kind of came to be like, hey, it's your turn to do the homework for the week and let everybody else just show up.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how I started and got my feet wet with it.
Nice.
And you liked your turns, like as it came up to be yours, you're like, oh, this is like you got more excited about it instead of thinking of it as homework. Were you more like happy to do it?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, it was. homework is like, the pejorative term, but it's like the most fun homework you could possibly have.
Right,
Okay, gotcha.
right. Yeah, could you,
Yeah.
I want to kind of narrow in on that. Could you kind of elaborate, like, what is this homework you speak of? Like, could you, I mean, the better way of phrasing that question would be, like, what goes into, like, preparing to be a GM, and then what goes into being a GM on the night, like, during the event itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for preparing, in the most old school, original sense of D&D or its, its children, the DM would prepare an entire story and an entire world, and he would create the dungeon. He would, maybe custom make monsters or maybe take them from a monster manual. And he would create the whole story himself that the people are building on. That's not something that I've ever done. Well, there's a lot of great resources that are pre-written stories.
Nice.
Okay.
That are, Paizo is the company who makes Pathfinder, and they have all kinds of stuff from, simple one-night stories to stories that are going to take you 5 years of playing regularly to get through.
Wow.
All kinds of stuff. So my prep is, for our game that we play, my prep is reading the chapter on the level of the dungeon that you guys are going to delve into, as well as knowing kind of the backstory of the town and the NPCs that you might interact with. I need to know all that. I need to know the monsters that you're going to go up against. I need to know where the traps are, all of that, so that I can be ready when you go in and wreak havoc.
Nice. Would you, I want to kind of stay here in the realm of GMing real quick, and I just want to have one more question, which is, what do you think makes a good GM? Like, what personality characteristics or what makes a good GM?
I think the two things make a great GM. The first is being prepared, like I said, knowing your stuff, showing up on time, with having everything ready. But the second is the most important, and that's kind of being able to improvise.
Yeah.
Like, you have a theater background, so like improv, yes and.
Yep.
And yes and is the most important thing a DM or GM can have. And that's, like, we say no encounter survives contact with the PCs. Like, no matter what I prepare, it's going to all go out the window the second you guys get into it. Part of the beauty of it being completely open-ended and you can do whatever you want is I need to be able to roll with it, and for you to be able to enjoy this open-endedness, it requires me to say, okay, yes, you can do that, but here's the consequences for it.
Cool.
Right? So you can do absolutely anything you want. Like, in our game, I think I gave you guys a time limit on, you need to explore the whole thing within 30 days or whatever, but you are free to go on side quests if you want to, and if you want to let that 30 days pass without having explored the dungeon, there'll be consequences for it. You're free to do whatever you want, but who knows what's going to happen in the story if you don't do that in time.
You do.
Yeah.
The GM does. Yeah.
I will by the time we get there.
Good answer.
Yep. Cool. All right. Let's talk about tabletops more. Let's zoom back out and talk kind of more broadly. What ways do you think that tabletop RPGs are kind of revolutionary? Like, in what ways are they innovating and evolving with the time? And just kind of what makes them set them apart? Like, if you were to sell, like, our listeners on tabletop RPGs, like, hey, you should go find your local Pathfinder group, like, what would be your selling points?
Yeah. So, my selling points would be, like, kind of what I talked about earlier about the total open-endedness, having fun with that. Also, the bonding. I've never bonded with people over a game the way I have through tabletop RPGs. Like, you fight and you make up and you have all kinds of fun with each other. Like, it's crazy. But as far as, like, how is it revolutionary? How has it been revolutionary? They're kind of the beginning of so much, man. Like, we wouldn't have video games today the way that they are if we didn't have RPGs. We wouldn't have a lot of what we have without Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax are the two guys who kind of created D&D in the early days. And I think, like, one of the key ways that D&D has impacted games is adding stories to games. Before it existed, the games that people played were, Monopoly or Scrabble, or like they would play war games that were just sort of a fixed, reenactment of a battle or something.
Mm-hmm.
These guys added the element of like, we're telling a story in our game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't there before.
Nice. Yeah.
How have tabletop RPGs themselves evolved or innovated over time? Have you seen? I mean, I know you said you've only been involved for 2 to 3 years, but Dungeons and Dragons is kind of 1970s. You saw that in like Stranger Things, and what that looks like compared to today. What do you think? Compare and contrast that.
So I think a lot has changed since then. I want to say it was in the 90s. Dungeons and Dragons 3, 3rd edition.
Okay.
They operated under what's called an open gaming license, which was kind of a revolutionary thing. It was really cool, where basically other developers were free to use the mechanics of their game to add all kinds of supplemental material and whatever you wanted to the game.
That's incredible.
It was really cool. And that persists with Pathfinder today. That's why I've sent you guys a bunch of links to like where you can find rules and stuff like that. It's all free online because it's all freely available under the open gaming license.
Okay, so you think Pathfinder is one of those implementations of Dungeons and Dragons that someone else took and ran with?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you let me history nerd out a little bit on what Pathfinder is so Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition came out, open gaming license. Then they had sort of a small update, which was Dungeons and Dragons 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 is probably the most beloved version of Dungeons and Dragons by gamers today.
Okay. Then
Dungeons and Dragons came out with 4th edition after 3.5, and that was they got rid of the open gaming license, so no one else could use their rights. The 4th edition, and they made it a lot more video game like. They added a bunch of things like instead of having spells per day and all of that, you had powers. And like the wizard could sort of shoot an infinite amount of small fireball blasts, etc. And it was a lot more video game like. And a lot of traditional D&D people didn't like that. And that's where Pathfinder came from. Pathfinder took the open gaming license of D&D 3.5 and made an offshoot. And then you basically had all of the nerds who we know nerds are fiercely loyal people.
Yeah.
And so the nerds sort of split into 2 groups. Those who were loyal to the D&D 3.5 system switched to Pathfinder. And those who were loyal to the D&D brand continued on with 4th edition.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
And then we've kind of split off since then. And that's where we are today with 5th edition and Pathfinder.
So D&D 5... What is the current edition of D&D? Like, where are they at?
5th edition.
They are 5th, okay.
Called D&D 5e, yep.
And would you say that, how is 5th edition, based on your experience or your research, has it kind of brought back elements of D&D 3? Or have they kind of continued forward with their more video game-like approach, like you said?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
They kind of dropped some of the video game-y things like powers for every character and got back to more of the traditional wizards have a certain number of spells and fighters, don't have any kind of power things, but they can just attack really well, that kind of stuff. But they're focused on a simpler gamer who doesn't love all of the insane minutia of rules that 3.5 and Pathfinder provided.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Where we are today is like, if you want a simple fantasy RPG, you go with D&D 5e. If you want the insane amount of rules, then you go with Pathfinder.
Nice. Cool.
I think of that as like, we always have to have our obligatory World of Warcraft discussion on every episode of podcasts.
Yes,
but
of
I feel
course.
like vanilla World of Warcraft was very complex, very slow and grindy to its fault. And then today
they had a lot of like stupid systems that not stupid, but definitely things that were like, okay, that's weird. They've definitely streamlined, and gotten rid of. Whereas today, so it's more
so simple now, and it's all like boiled up to like the refined everything. So it's super easy to develop your character. You level up way faster. You don't have the complex skill trees anymore. They've simplified everything. Yeah, and I feel like Dungeons and Dragons or in that has kind of follow the same path. It's like,
Yeah.
let's just make this simpler and easier to access and easier to learn and reduce the rules.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, this segues us nicely because while we're talking about video games in our video game podcast,
Yes.
let's talk about what ways tabletop RPGs have sort of influenced video games. So yeah, we'll start there. What ways, Nick, as the more experienced among us, what ways do you think that tabletop RPGs have specifically influenced video games and the systems that are in thereof? More than you've already talked about. I think you already talked about a couple,
Right.
but
It's kind of it's a tough topic because there's so much, like so much of the beginnings of video games come from it. But one thing, I'm listening to an audiobook called Of Dice and Men, which is sort of about the history of the creations of Dungeons & Dragons and where it's come from. And they pointed out that Dave Arneson, one of the original creators, is the guy who created the idea of leveling up, of persistent characters is what they called it. And before him, like, no one had thought of creating these games where you continue the character from one stage to the next and he gets progressively stronger or better.
Oh, wow.
And like that obviously, is incredibly important in video games.
Yeah, which is crazy too, because when you think about it, like level in the context of video games, the word level has two meanings.
Yeah,
it means either your character's current strength and progress relative to time, or it means like an environment. Like, like level design is like, what does the environment look like? And level 1, 2, 3, 4 in Mario means something different than level 1, 2, 3, 4 in Diablo, which is very it's kind of crazy. That's definitely an innovation that I imagine came right from tabletops.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of roots of Dungeons and Dragons in text-based games from the PC days, like way back in the early 80s, before we saw the console boom. Like, you could play Zork. Like Ready Player One kind of touches on them too. The text-based games, the adventure games, where you kind of choose your own adventure, interact with the environment in any way that you want, with limited set.
Yeah.
That didn't really have, at least to my experience, knowledge, you have an inventory system and you explore as a character and you solve puzzles. And those games are mostly centered on solving the environment's puzzles, not character development.
Yeah.
And the character development aspect with levels came to like the masses with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, like the Nintendo days. So you can see that, you can draw that line too, from tabletop RPGs to video games almost directly in the 80s.
Yeah. Is there, while we're on the topic of video games, is there any video game that you've played or type of game that you would say most, like when you get the feeling of, when you play this game, you get the same kind of similar feelings that you get when you play a tabletop?
Yeah. Well, lately I've been playing Baldur's Gate.
Yes.
Which is super old school, but I never played it when it came out. I just downloaded it recently because I read that it's literally D&D 2nd edition. Like, that's the whole game engine.
Yeah.
They roll dice, behind the scenes and all that, but you level up and everything exactly like that. And that has been really fun. I mean, just kind of rudimentary exploring the map and all of that. Doing kind of whatever I want and having the characters yell at me because I'm not fast enough at accomplishing their quest.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, that's been, it's been a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, I played the crap out of Dark Alliance back in the day.
You?
Yeah, I played a lot. Yeah. I remember the water effects specifically. Was that Baldur's Gate 2, Dark Alliance?
I don't remember.
I don't remember which one it was.
So.
Yeah, but it had like water effects that were actually, for the time, again, this is GameCube days. But for the time, I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
Was it 3D?
Yeah. Well, it was like 3D. It was like kind of like Diablo, like top down, but it had
still
three-dimensional.
Isometric.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I played Icewind Dale. Well, so that was like, I guess, Baldur's Gate 1, one of their like expansions or side offshoots. Like, Icewind Dale was awesome.
Yeah.
But I equated it to Diablo 2 a lot.
Yeah.
It was definitely not 3D and had, pre-designed and printed backgrounds with animated sprites. But yeah, it was really good.
Exactly.
I've heard that the word on the street is that Divinity Original Sin 2 is the quintessential like video game RPG experience for those who are fans of tabletops. And it's cooperative.
Yeah.
So, if we all wanted to consider getting it. Of course, you don't have a PS4, but it is a PC game. So the PS4 version is a port anyways. So we all decided we wanted to get it on PC.
One of the friends of the show is already trying to ping me to get involved in a group of Divinity Original Sin 2. Yep, on the PS4.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm dying to play it. It looks so
it looks good. I saw there was like an article. It was really funny because it was this article that, again, randomly like popped up on Facebook and is like, here's what's on sale on the PlayStation right now. And I was like, okay, I like popped down to see what it was. And they said like Divinity, the first one, they had the first one on sale for $10. And I was like, oh, that's a price I'd buy it at.
Yeah.
But the article was old enough that by the time I got, like, I don't know how it came through my newsfeed, but like by the time I got to it,
it was full price again.
Yeah, it was full price again. I was like, no. So, but yeah, cool. All right, we have a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up. The first, we can probably knock out this one really quickly, but is there anything that you think that video games could draw more from tabletop RPGs to be better, like to make the whole medium better? The whole medium better. Wow. Or just make specific games. Yeah, I was gonna say make them. Yeah. One thing that I would love is like sandbox games, like Skyrim, that is multiplayer. Like that's what I'm killing for. Is if I could play Skyrim with a party of 4 people, just like in a Pathfinder or D&D, and we have to go on our adventure together, like I would kill for that. Yeah. But not quite like the level of World of Warcraft where it's this massive community and you have all these like complexities. Just sort of a simple quest, like a quest-based game where it's like, hey, we're doing this together and killing monsters. Right, like a Diablo 2, but awesome. Nice. Yeah, but like a big, I can see what you mean. Like Diablo 2, where you're playing together, but it's not these sort of pre-rendered maps. It's like or not necessarily pre-rendered, but it's like a big open sandbox where you as a group can be like, let's go here. Let's go here together. Right. Let's go into this dungeon. Let's go explore. It'd almost be like if Breath of the Wild was multiplayer. Right. Yeah. Like. That'd be awesome. Oh my gosh. That would be incredible. And I feel like Fallout 76 is the industry's first toe into that water. And we don't know much about it yet because it's not out yet, but it seems like it's going to be that. It's the open world of Fallout, which is very similar to Skyrim or Elder Scrolls in general. It's made by the same people. And you can now have an online system. You can play together, you can work together or not. You each have your own like home base that you create, and then eventually you can like attack others or not. And it seems like to be that. It's just in the Fallout world instead of Skyrim. But I think the next Elder Scrolls 6 is going to depend on the success of Fallout 76 and its reception. Yeah. And so you might end up getting exactly that. The next Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 6, could be that exact game you want. That'd be sweet. All right. Well, I can't wait. I'll have to buy a PS5? Yeah, it'd be a PS5 game. Almost guaranteed. Well, it seems like you were also the kind of flip of this question. And it seems like you may have already answered this kind of in the way that you talked about D&D 5. So there may not be anything that you'll say for this, but the reverse of that question would be: is there anything that you think that tabletop RPGs could take more of from video games, or should they? Should they even be worried about that at all? Maybe not. Okay. I don't know. Like I don't know that I struggled to find an answer for that one when I was reading it earlier. I love tabletop RPGs the way they are. Yeah. I don't think they need. I'm the guy who loves the super complex. Pathfinder has rules for breathing underwater and has rules for like slippery slopes and exactly how slippery something is and that insane depth kind of stuff. I'm not the guy who searches for like the more simplified game, if that makes sense. Yeah, but because you can get that in a video game. So you kind of have so what you're saying is like, they're two separate things. Continue to treat them as separate and don't try to take elements from either. Yeah. I would love to be able to play Pathfinder solo, but that would kind of change the game. Yeah, completely. Yeah. Same thing. You'd have to be your own GM. Wow. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, then the final question we had is more of a discussion for the whole group, because we mentioned on the onset that you were our GM. So our first, Penguin and Termite had their first foray into tabletop RPGs, and it was because we were invited to do so by you, who has been a listener. I know you've known Danny for a while. Termite, I should say. You've known him previously, but literally the first time I met you was playing Pathfinder together. Oh, really? That was your first time? Yeah, I never. Well, I mean, we had been doing prep ahead of time, of course. But yes, the first time we talked face to face was the night that we played Pathfinder. So, again, knowing us and being a listener of ours and kind of being a fan in that way, how was the experience of being our GM? And what were some fun moments that you had with us that you would say were the most fun of that campaign? Oh, I had a blast that night. It is weird. Like, I feel like I'm friends with you guys because I hang out with you every Monday on my commute. That's awesome. Thank you. But like, we haven't, really, you guys don't know me at all.
barely. But I had a blast. Like I said earlier about, no plan ever survives the PCs. You guys were just a bunch of wrecking balls. I wasn't quite expecting that. I thought maybe there would be some diplomacy or some stealth, but you guys were just like plowing through everything.
Well,
what did you guys think? How do you enjoy it?
I was gonna say I designed my character to be chaotic neutral because I think that's the alignment that most resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I probably, if you were to actually look at my actions over the course of my life, I would probably be more chaotic good.
Mm-hmm.
But I resonate more with chaotic neutral. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised at all that I behaved the way I did in that game, because I was like, I like chaotic neutral. I like characters that are chaotic neutral. And so I'm going to make my character chaotic neutral and behave that way, which is really funny when playing with Termite, who is absolutely lawful good. Like, and for those listeners who don't know what those terms mean, it's just, you always pick a morality for your character. It's one of the things you choose when you're making them, and it's really just a kind of guideline for your character's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a, like, in this situation, you would probably act this way. In this situation, you would probably act this way. When confronted with this, you'd probably act one way and versus the other.
Yeah.
So, like...
And as the GM, I am the arbiter of what your alignment is. Like, you can say you're chaotic neutral, but I can ultimately say, no, Penguin, your character is actually chaotic evil because of this and this and this action. And so you can, you choose what you want to play like, but really in the end, I'm the one who's sitting there saying, no, this is what your alignment really is.
Right, because based on what you've done. Yeah, I was going to say, based on what
Yeah.
you've done then, because, you can try to go for one thing. That's interesting. I didn't know there was that element to it. Cool.
Yeah, and going into it as lawful good, I guess every Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder game or something along these tabletop RPGs starts with a beginning conflict where you're at a bar or you're at a common area and a conflict ensues, and that kind of starts the story and kicks things off. And I was immediately like, let's not fight. Let's just talk it out. Let's just make friends and figure it out. And then Penguin's jumping on the table and slashing people right off the bat.
I'm like, you guys suck.
Yeah.
I'm inciting fights literally within seconds. We barely overheard a sentence from the people at the other table, and I'm like, you guys suck.
Yeah, and then starting instigating.
You couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, much less your own slaves.
Yeah. And so our personality types were highlighted immediately because Penguin loves attention. He loves loud and boisterous, pay attention to me, theatrics, big over the top. And I'm the very much let's just follow the rules and try to get along. And so our personality types were highlighted. That was really cool.
Which is even funnier when you have to consider the fact that we were forced to work together. And which I thought you did masterfully, because from the onset, they wanted to just leave me in jail. They're like, oh gosh, do we have to take you? So you as, again, like you said, sort of the arbiter of the experience, had to sort of be like, well, here are reasons why it's important for you guys not to leave him behind. You know what I mean? And kind of giving us means by which we could work together despite the clear differences in our characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Which is going to be even crazier when we add 2 new personalities to the mix. If we can get Nathan and Kevin in.
Yeah, it'd be great.
And Matt, 3 new potential personalities.
Yeah, 3
into the mix.
Yeah.
And of course, being the first tabletop RPG experience I've ever had, I expected a lot more limits to things, predefined rules and limitations, because I played a lot of board games, Star Wars Imperial Alliance is a campaign game. Seafall, these are board games that have rules and limitations to the game and pieces and stuff. Where we could literally do anything, and I was surprised because we entered that first room of goblins in the dungeon, and I was like, I speak Goblin, I can talk to these guys. We don't have to fight them. It's not like in the other board games. It's okay, it's the enemy's turn. They're doing this. It's your turn. You have to fight. Choose your abilities based on the card you see in your hand. It's I have a stat sheet with things I could do. And I see that I speak Goblin. I can talk to them. And I tried to interrupt the whole fight and say, hey guys, let's see if we can get anything out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe we can bring them onto our side and bring them with us.
Which was
just brainstorming.
It was one of my favorite moments, again, only because of the way that I'm trying to play my character. Again, I'm going for chaotic neutral, and I thought to myself, I was like, the chaotic neutral thing to do in this moment is, holy crap, this is amusing as heck. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
So then I used my abilities. I was like, I can control animals, or I can calm them down or whatever. So I'm like, the dog is attacking me. I tame the dog because I want to see where this goes. Whereas Ryan the entire time was like, let's just kill them. And the best thing at the end of the day was like, we got to a point with the conversation with these goblins where we realized, yeah, we're going to have to kill them. Yep. So Ryan was right the entire time. Like, Ryan going with his gut was right the entire time. And yet this entire thing happened because Termite was being like, I want to try to reason with these goblins. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty funny. I want to see where this goes. So I enabled him. It was great. I thought it was
a lot of fun.
It was definitely one of my highlights of the campaign. Then every single room we encountered with goblins from that point on, we just killed them.
Yeah, we just kind of streamlined ourselves.
Yeah, we're like, okay, like so we know we're not going to get anywhere with these goblins, so let's just murder. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but even like the approach, like the front door, there was different ways to go in, and we could do different things. Did you use a noise?
I did. I distracted them and make them run inside, scared. Yeah,
and it allowed us to.
That actually had a big impact on what. So to pull back the curtain a little bit, in the story that I'm reading, the goblins have kind of preset. This is what they're going to do if you do this, etc. Right. So the first goblin that you saw would, if you had just come up, he would have gone and warned the other goblins, and then they would have been a lot more ready for you guys to fight.
Oh yeah, we walked in on goblins like sleeping and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So, because what happened, you happened to make a growling sound, and goblins in the Pathfinder world are terrified of dogs. So
perfect.
Exactly. So that was not something that was in the book, the dog sound. I had to sort of play on my feet and decide, okay, this goblin is not going to go into battle mode. He's terrified of dogs. He's going to just run into this room where you guys ended up trapping them in that secret room.
Which is
because
really...
he was running away from the dog.
Yeah, which is great, too, because you gave... Again, going back to just sort of the freedom of the players to completely change the story. You asked me, you're like... Because all I did was my ability, which was, like, make a noise. Like, make a noise at a specific location. So, basically, like, throwing my voice, because my character is basically a bard, like a rage bard. And so I just was like, I'm going to use my ability to throw my voice. And you said, okay, what sound do you want to make? And I literally said, I was like, I don't know, like a growling sound?
You just guessed.
I could have made like the shriek of a woman. I could have made like, I could have tried to be the voice of God or something like that. You know what I mean? Which I think I did try at a later time. I was like, I am your God, goblins. And so like I could have chosen anything. And again, it's sort of just... I didn't know that, because you're pulling back the curtain. I didn't know that goblins are scared of dogs. So I was like, I'm going to make a growling sound, try to freak them out. And it worked. And it also impacted the rest of our making our way through that first level. So that's awesome. It's so much
interesting, that fact, if we'd have known about it, we could have cheated the whole system and actually ruined our experience.
Yeah, exactly.
We could have just known that.
Instead, we just kind of stumbled across these things. And
that makes it more fun.
And then, again, what I love about it is like then trying new things. So first I tried the sound of a growling. Then I tried to like convince the goblins that I was their leader. And that didn't work. And that didn't work. That did not work the way I wanted it to. Because I couldn't speak goblin, so it didn't matter.
Because you didn't speak goblin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is great. So, cool. Were there any moments that you particularly like really thought were fun throughout the...
Or bad.
Or like that was not our finest moment?
That's a good question. I, for a little bit, thought that robot was going to kill you. There was a close chance. One of you almost died, I think.
Yeah, that was...
And I was a little bit worried, but no, I think the finishing out that, because we didn't quite finish it. So if you remember, we've got another floor to explore, and I think you guys have used all of your spells.
We did.
So
yeah, we used it because we had to fight the robot or the golem and that goblin priest cleric thing. Yeah.
The cleric,
he wore us out.
Yeah,
we left with the assumption or the understanding we could go back to town and rest. And then it would be a different day, and then we'd have all of our spells back.
Absolutely. You can choose to do that, and there will be consequences.
See,
no matter whatever you choose.
Good.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the...
We should get our audience to tell us what to do.
Play a complete D&D game where the audience makes the choices for us. That would be fun. Not D&D Pathfinder. That would be fun. Yeah. That would be very fun.
Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying, Nick?
Oh, the other thing that, that was just the first level, right? And you guys cruised through all of those goblins, but, I mean... Those are just a bunch of mindless, stupid goblins. So we'll see how your lack of stealth, like Bruiser, thing works going deeper into the dungeon.
For sure. Yeah.
With tougher enemies.
Yeah. I do think that there was another moment where someone almost died, and that was in that first bar fight. Like, that was not our finest. That was our first fight. And I swear I didn't hit a single person with my axe. It's like my character had been drinking, and like it wasn't because I as, you know, Penguin was like rolling dice poorly because I had been drinking, but it kind of worked out kind of funny because I was like literally my first like 3 axe throws I completely missed, and it was in like that first bar fight, and I'm pretty sure Ryan was like bleeding out at one point.
Yeah.
Yes. He was.
And I'm pretty sure he almost died too. So
yeah,
and that was before we got our little cleric friend Ulmo or whatever to help us out and heal us. So
Ulmo is awesome.
Yeah,
shout out to Ulmo.
And which is great because it felt like one thing I loved about that NPC mercenary that we hired essentially to join us was it really was kind of an opportunity to feel like we were playing with you because you controlled all of his actions.
Yeah.
So it was almost like you were on our side as well, even though obviously you have a bigger role to play. It was kind of like you dipped your toe into our party by controlling Ulmo or whatever. So I'm assuming that was intentional. Umlo, yes.
Umlo, it was.
Umlo, yes. I'm assuming that was intentional kind of as a part of the play.
Yeah, well, had Nathan been able to make it, I wouldn't have done that.
Gotcha.
But only three people would have been not very much going into that.
It was funny too because we almost picked a completely different mercenary.
We argued over that, trying to figure out who we were going to pick. Yeah. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I really wanted you to pick the goblin.
We were close.
Fun for me to pick.
I was so close. Yeah, cool, awesome. Well, great. This I think. I it has reminded me that I really want to play Pathfinder again. Yeah, like because I'm like, we did leave off right before going up the stairs and seeing what was that in the next
floor.
Yeah, floor. Because I'm guessing, are we going like ultimately as we progress through this dungeon? I don't remember if we're going up or down.
I think we're going up.
So ultimately, if any Pathfinder people are listening, this is the Emerald Spire Super Dungeon that we're playing. Yeah. Ultimately, we are going down.
Oh.
You're on the first level. There is something upstairs.
Gotcha.
And you, from just sort of your general perception, you know it's smaller than the floor that you're on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in my mind, my headcanon is that we're going to find our friends up there if they join us in the next.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to find Kevin, Nathan, and Matt in cages, and we're going to, like, fight something to let them free, and then they'll join our party. But that's just my headcanon. No spoilers. You don't have to tell us what's up there.
Right.
Because we'll find out for ourselves. But that's my personal headcanon, what I'm like. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. Like, I'm assuming we could also go back to town and find them, but I think it would be really funny if they were all trapped in cages and we let them go and they felt obliged to us from that moment forward. So...
Yeah, you'll have to wait.
We'll have to wait and see. Read and find out. Yep, cool. All right, well, thanks, Nick, for joining us. Really,
thanks for having me.
I really appreciated. I really appreciated you inviting us into a game in the first place. Because we have been talking about doing that for a while, and
it's a lot of work.
Exactly. We needed someone who's willing to do the lion's share of the work, which is you. So. So, Nick, if you want the good people of the internet to find you anywhere, where could those good people of the internet find you? And if you don't want them to find you, you can also say that as well.
Yeah, there's really nowhere. I don't want them to find my Facebook, and I don't really use Twitter or Instagram except for to follow them.
Great.
If you follow me on Twitter at Nick Peach Taylor, you'll see that most of my tweets are just me asking Tom Holland if he'll get a beer with me when he's in...
Yes, Spider-Man.
Perfect, wonderful,
yeah,
great. So if you are interested in seeing Peach here, reach out to Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man, to get beer. If we'll find that entertaining, then feel free to follow him there, where he has said you can follow him. You can all find us where, Termite?
At 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing webpage where we have links to Google Play and iTunes. Please follow those links, subscribe to us there. We're also on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. All 80-bit Podsmash. No hyphens, no uppercases, no lowercases. Just 80-bit Podsmash.
Great. And if you have any questions about tabletop RPGs or want us to talk more about them or elaborate more on our campaign, keep you guys updated as to what's going on in the world of, what are our characters' names? Gruntled and...
I'm Termite, because I'm so...
Termite,
of course.
Yeah, because he's so freaking egotistical. Yeah, Termite and Gruntled. Then we'll let you guys know. You can reach out to us at any of those locations that Termite just elaborated on. So, again, thanks for joining us, Nick. And... everyone else, have a great rest of your week.
Have a good week.
Have a good week.